The words hit me like a physical blow, even though I'd heard variations of them my entire life. My mother, Patricia Harrison, stood in the middle of our family's modest kitchen, her face red with frustration and what I'd come to recognize as deep, bone-deep disappointment in me. 28 years old, Alex, and what do you have to show for it? She gestured wildly at the small apartment I'd been renting in what she considered the wrong part of town. Your brother David has a corner office at Goldman Sachs. Your sister Emma just made partner at her law firm. And you sit in that garage all day playing with computers like you're still 12 years old. I kept my voice calm, even though my heart was racing. This wasn't the first time we'd had this conversation, but something about today felt different, more final. Mom, what I do is important work. I'm building something that could change how people what? Waste their time on the internet. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Alex, I love you, but I can't keep pretending that your little hobby is going to turn into anything real. It's been 6 years since you dropped out of Stanford. 6 years of watching you disappoint everyone who believed in you. The Stanford comment stung because it was partially true. I had dropped out, much to my family's horror. But what they didn't know, what nobody knew, was that I'd left to pursue something bigger than any degree could offer. Something that was about to fundamentally change not just my life, but the entire landscape of artificial intelligence and machine learning. Your father and I have been talking, Mom continued, and I felt my stomach drop. When my parents talked about me, it never ended well. We think it's time for some tough love. No more financial help. No more covering your rent when you're short. No more pretending that what you're doing is anything other than an extended adolescence. Mom, I haven't asked you for money in over 2 years. Because we've been giving it to you anyway, she exploded. The car insurance, the health insurance, the little loans for equipment. It adds up, Alex, and we're tired of enabling this fantasy. I wanted to tell her everything about Neural Dynamics, the company I'd been building in secret, about the breakthrough in adaptive AI that we'd achieved 3 months ago, about the acquisition offer that had come in last week from one of the biggest tech conglomerates in the world. But I'd learned long ago that my family didn't believe in my dreams until they were impossible to ignore. This isn't a fantasy, Mom. If you could just give me a chance to explain. Explain what? How you're going to be the next Bill Gates. How your little computer programs are going to make you rich. She shook her head sadly. Honey, I know you think you're special, but the world is full of people who think they're going to be the exception. The reality is that most people need to find regular jobs and build regular lives. The irony was suffocating. Here I was, literally hours away from finalizing the largest AI acquisition in the past 5 years, and my own mother was lecturing me about facing reality. You need to grow up, she continued, her voice getting louder again. Get a real job. Maybe David can get you something entry-level at his firm. You're smart enough. You could work your way up if you applied yourself to something legitimate for once in your life. Entry-level at David's firm. I couldn't keep the incredulity out of my voice. Mom, do you really think that's what I want? To spend my life in a cubicle, making other people rich? I think you need to stop acting like you're above honest work, she snapped. Your brother makes $200,000 a year. That's real money, Alex. That's the kind of success that matters. $200,000. If only she knew that Neural Dynamics revenue last quarter had been $47 million. If only she knew that the acquisition offer sitting on my desk would net me personally more than David would make in 100 lifetimes. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I tried one more time to reach her. Mom, what if I told you that everything you think you know about my situation is wrong? What if I told you that I'm actually doing better than you could possibly imagine? She laughed again, that same bitter sound. What would I say? I'd say that you're living in a fantasy world, just like always. Alex, look around you. Look at this apartment. Look at your car. Look at your life. These aren't the trappings of success. It was true that I lived modestly. The apartment was small. My car was 7 years old, and I dressed like someone who spent most of his time in a garage-turned-laboratory. But that was by choice. Every dollar I could save had gone back into neural dynamics. Every sacrifice had been made in service of building something that would outlast any salary or corner office. You know what your problem is. Mom was warming up for what I recognized as her closing argument. You think you're too good for the life the rest of us have built. You think there's something wrong with working hard at a normal job and building a normal family. Well, let me tell you something. Normal is good. Normal pays the bills. Normal doesn't leave your parents wondering if their child is going to end up homeless. I'm not going to end up homeless, Mom. How do you know that? How do you know that this computer thing you're so obsessed with isn't going to fall apart tomorrow? What's your backup plan, Alex? What happens when you finally admit that this isn't working? The question hung in the air between us. What was my backup plan? The truth was, I'd never needed one. Neural dynamics had been profitable from year 2. We'd never taken outside investment because we'd never needed it. The technology we developed was so far ahead of anything else in the market that companies had been calling us for months, begging for partnerships. But how could I explain that to someone who saw my life as evidence of failure? Mom, I understand why you're worried. I really do. From the outside, I know it looks like I'm not doing well. But what if I asked you to trust me? Just for a little while longer? What if I told you that everything is about to change? Her expression softened slightly, and for a moment I thought I'd gotten through to her. Then she shook her head, and I saw something that looked almost like pity in her eyes. Alex, baby, that's what you've been saying for 6 years. Everything is about to change. This is the big break. Just wait and see. I can't keep waiting and seeing while you waste the best years of your life chasing something that doesn't exist. It does exist, Mom. It's real. And it's happening whether you believe in it or not. Then prove it, she said, crossing her arms. Show me something real. Show me something concrete. Not more promises about the future. Show me results. That's when my phone rang. The sound cut through our argument like a knife, and I glanced down to see a number I recognized immediately. Citibank. Specifically, Marcus Webb, the senior vice president who'd been handling the financial side of the acquisition for the past month. Are you going to answer that? Mom asked, irritation creeping back into her voice. Is it more important than this conversation? I looked at the phone, then at my mother's expectant face. This was it. This was the moment I'd been building toward for 6 years. The call that would change everything. Actually, Mom, I think this call might be exactly what you need to hear. I swiped to answer and immediately hit the speaker button. Mr. Harrison, congratulations on becoming the youngest billionaire in the city's history. Marcus Webb's voice filled the kitchen, crisp and professional and completely surreal in the context of our tiny apartment. I'm calling to confirm that all the final paperwork for the Neural Dynamics acquisition has been processed. Tech Global Industries has officially completed their purchase of your company for $3.8 billion. The silence that followed was deafening. I watched my mother's face, go through a series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, shock, and finally something that might have been understanding. "I'm sorry," she whispered, as if speaking too loudly might make the voice on the phone disappear. "Did he just say billion?" I confirmed quietly, with a B. Marcus continued, oblivious to the family drama unfolding on my end. "Your personal share comes to approximately $2.9 billion after taxes, making you not just the youngest billionaire in the city, but one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the country. The initial payment of $1.5 billion has been deposited into your primary account as of this morning, with the remainder to be paid out over the next 18 months as per the acquisition agreement." Mom's legs seemed to give out, and she sank heavily into one of our kitchen chairs. Her face had gone completely white. "The board at Tech Global is particularly excited about Neural Dynamics' breakthrough in adaptive learning algorithms," Marcus went on. "They've asked me to pass along their personal congratulations on what they're calling the most innovative AI development of the decade." "Thank you, Marcus," I managed to say, my voice surprisingly steady given the circumstances. "I'll review all the final documents this afternoon." "Excellent. Oh, and Mr. Harrison, Forbes magazine has been trying to reach you. Something about a cover story on young entrepreneurs who are reshaping the tech industry. I believe they want to feature Neural Dynamics as their lead story for next month's innovation issue." "I'll get back to them," I said. "Thanks for everything, Marcus. I know this deal wouldn't have happened without your team's help." "Our pleasure, sir. Congratulations again on your success." The line went dead, leaving my mother and me sitting in complete silence. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Mom stared at the phone in my hand as if it were some kind of alien artifact. When she finally looked up at me, her eyes were filled with tears. "Alex," she whispered. I don't understand. How is this possible?" I set the phone down carefully on the kitchen table and took a deep breath. Where did I even begin? "Neural Dynamics," I said simply. "The company I've been building for the past 6 years. We developed a new type of artificial intelligence that can learn and adapt in ways that nobody thought possible. It's going to revolutionize everything from medical diagnostics to financial modeling to autonomous vehicles. But you live in this apartment. You drive that old Honda. She gestured helplessly around the room. "I live modestly because I was putting everything back into the company," I explained. "Every dollar went toward research and development. I didn't want to spend money on things that didn't matter when I could be investing in something that would change the world." Mom put her head in her hands. When she looked up again, her face was a mixture of amazement and something that looked like shame. "You're a billionaire," she said, as if testing how the words sounded. "As of about 4 hours ago, yes. And you never told us?" This was the hard part. How do you explain to your family that you didn't trust them enough to share your dreams? How do you tell your mother that you kept the biggest success of your life secret because you were tired of having those dreams dismissed? "Mom, every time I tried to tell you about Neural Dynamics, you shut me down. Every time I mentioned the potential, you told me to get a real job. I learned pretty quickly that it was easier to work in silence than to constantly defend what I was doing." The tears were flowing freely now. "Alex, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I thought you were just wasting your life." "I know you did, and I understand why you thought that. From the outside, it probably did look like I was going nowhere. But why didn't you tell us when things started going well? When you knew you were going to be successful?" I considered the question carefully. When was that moment, exactly? When we hit our first million in revenue? When we got our first major client? When the acquisition offers started coming in? Mom, this has been a gradual process. And honestly, I got so used to keeping it to myself that it became easier to just not share. She was quiet for a long time, processing everything. Finally, she asked, "What does this mean? What happens now?" Now I figure out what to do with more money than I ever dreamed of having. Tech Global wants me to stay on as Chief Technology Officer to help integrate neural dynamics technology into their existing platforms. I'll be overseeing a team of 300 engineers and scientists. 300 people work for you? Worked for me. Now they work for Tech Global, but they'll still be my team for the foreseeable future. Mom stood up suddenly and began pacing around the small kitchen. I don't know what to say. I feel like I don't even know who you are anymore. I'm the same person I was an hour ago, Mom. The same person who's been coming to family dinners and listening to lectures about getting a real job. The only thing that's changed is that now you know the truth about what I've been doing. But Alex, you're one of the richest people in the country now. That changes everything. Does it though? Does it change who I am as a person? Does it change the fact that I love this family, even when you drive me crazy? She stopped pacing and looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. It took me a moment to recognize it as respect. Your brother David, she said slowly, his job at Goldman Sachs is a good job that he works hard at and should be proud of. I finished. This isn't about competition, Mom. This isn't about proving that I'm better than David or Emma. This is about following a path that made sense for me. But you could have told us, she insisted. Even if you didn't want to share the details, you could have given us some hint that things were going well. I nodded. You're right. I should have. I was so focused on the work and so tired of feeling defensive about my choices that I forgot you were worried about me because you love me, not because you wanted to hurt me. The kitchen fell silent again. Mom sat back down across from me, and I could practically see her trying to reorganize everything she thought she knew about my life. So what now? She asked finally. What do we do with this information? Well, I said, allowing myself a small smile. Maybe you could stop telling people that your son is a disappointment. She laughed despite herself, and for the first time in years, it sounded genuine. I think I can manage that. Though I might need some time to figure out how to explain that my son went from failure to billionaire overnight. It wasn't overnight, Mom. It was 6 years of 18-hour days and believing in something when nobody else did, including your own family. Including my own family, I agreed. She reached across the table and took my hand. Alex, I am so sorry. I'm sorry for not believing in you. I'm sorry for pushing you toward a life you didn't want. And I'm sorry for saying those terrible things about you not amounting to anything. Mom, you were scared. I get that. You saw your son making choices that didn't make sense to you, and you were worried about my future. That comes from love, even if it didn't always feel that way. But I should have trusted you. I should have known that if you were willing to work that hard for something, it must be important. I squeezed her hand. Maybe, but I also should have found a way to help you understand what I was doing without being so secretive about it. What happens with the family now? Do you still want to be part of our lives? I know we haven't been very supportive. The question surprised me. Mom, of course I want to be part of the family. Money doesn't change that. If anything, it gives me the freedom to spend more time with the people I care about. But we must seem so small to you now, so ordinary. I shook my head. You seem like the same people you've always been. The people who raised me and loved me and wanted the best for me, even when we disagreed about what that looked like. I don't know how to act around a billionaire, she admitted. How about you start by acting around your son? I suggested. The billionaire thing is just numbers on a bank statement. I'm still the guy who puts too much hot sauce on everything and forgets to call you back sometimes. She laughed again, and I could see some of the tension leaving her shoulders. There's something else, I said, pulling out my phone. Something I've been wanting to do for a long time. I opened my banking app and showed her the screen. The number was so large it looked almost fake. $1,500,000,000. I want to pay off your and Dad's mortgage, I said, and David's student loans, and Emma's too. Consider it back payment for all those years you worried about me. Mom's eyes filled with tears again. Alex, we can't accept that. It's too much. It's not too much. It's not even close to too much. Mom, I have more money than I know what to do with. Let me take care of the people who took care of me. But the mortgage is only 12 years from being paid off, and we can handle. Mom, I interrupted gently. Let me do this, please. It would make me happy to know that you and Dad don't have to worry about money anymore. She stared at the phone screen for a long moment. This is really happening, isn't it? This isn't some elaborate joke or dream. It's really happening. My baby is a billionaire, she whispered, and then she started crying in earnest. I got up and hugged her, and for the first time in years, it felt like we were really connecting. Not as mother and disappointing son, but as two people who loved each other despite their differences. I'm proud of you, she said into my shoulder. I'm so proud of you. And I'm sorry it took me this long to say it. You're saying it now, I replied. That's what matters. When she finally pulled back, she was smiling through her tears. Wait until your father hears about this. Wait until David and Emma hear about this. Should we call them? Are you ready for that conversation? I thought about it. My siblings had been just as skeptical of my choices as my parents, maybe more so. David had made it clear that he thought I was wasting my potential, and Emma had stopped asking about my work altogether after I declined her offer to help me find a real job at her firm. I think so, I said finally. But maybe we should start with Dad. One family member at a time. Mom nodded and wiped her eyes. He's going to faint. He literally might faint. Well, let's make sure he's sitting down when we tell him. As she reached for her phone to call my father, I looked around the small kitchen where I'd just become officially recognized as one of the youngest billionaires in the country. It was funny how the space looked exactly the same, but everything had changed. Not because of the money, really. The money was nice, and it would certainly make life easier in a lot of ways. But what had really changed was that for the first time in 6 years, my family knew who I really was. They knew what I'd been working toward, and they understood that my choices hadn't been about avoiding responsibility or chasing fantasies. They'd been about building something extraordinary. Dad? Mom said into the phone, her voice still shaky with emotion. You need to sit down. Alex has something to tell you. I took the phone from her and prepared to have the same conversation all over again. But this time, I wasn't dreading it. This time, I was looking forward to sharing my success with the people who mattered most. Hi, Dad, I said. I got some news that might surprise you. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, that felt like exactly the right place to start.